We're harvesting some onions today, and the onions that we planted early this spring before we really got dry. And later on we're going to take a look at, you don't have to have a lot of space to pack a lot of produce in a small area. All that and a whole lot more coming up today on the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener. This program was funded by the following.
At DollarSeed.com, all of our seeds are only $1 a pack. And we have online resources that teach you all about the rewarding hobby of growing your own plants, flowers, herbs, and vegetables. Imagine the joy you'll feel when your children actually help you harvest your first garden crop, or the pride of knowing you'll never need a florist again. Visit DollarSeed.com and grow a little magic of your own for just $1. DollarSeed.com. What could be healthier?
Willow Springs Soap Company is a locally owned Colorado business just a stone's throw away from the Rocky Mountains. Their handmade soap is made from simple, recognizable ingredients, which lead to a more natural, earth-friendly, long-lasting, and hard bar with a wonderful creamy lather. They make soap using the cold kettle process with a specially formulated recipe of 100% vegetable oils. They use traditional methods that produce a true soap instead of the commercial synthetic alternatives that can dry out skin. Go to www.willowspringssoap.com to get a fresh and natural clean, handmade in the Rockies.
The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener supports the following. Hunger Task Force believes that every person has the right to adequate food obtained with dignity. They're providing food for people in need. With their 151-acre working farm and fish hatchery in Franklin, Wisconsin, volunteers are needed daily. You could plant seeds in the greenhouse, ride the transplanter, or you can make an instant $10 donation from your mobile device by texting food to 52,000. For more information on how you can help end hunger, visit hungertaskforce.org. Welcome to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener. I'm Joey Baird. This show is dedicated to the average gardener, simple home living, and using what you already have. Well, we're in the garden today and we're going to harvest some of the onions that we planted early this spring. Now, these are the onions, the organic onions that we had bought last year, planted late in the year, and they didn't come up. So as they sporadically popped this spring, I brought them over and put them in two nice lines and planted them here. Now, as you can see, we have a massive weed patch here, and as for most of you in the country, we've been in a severe drought. So with the weeds, it's actually preventing a lot of the moisture from evaporating up, even though the weeds is taking some of that too. The balance is, I feel it's not going to bake the soil if I leave the weeds in there. But the onions, some of them are done, and the way you tell if your onions are done is if they're tilted over, if the stalk, the green portion of the chive is bent over from the bulb. That's an indication to the onion that, hey, I'm done growing, that's it. Now, with the taller onions back here that are very sturdy, those are still going to continue to grow, and we're going to leave them in the ground until that happens. Now, if you can catch your onions before they start topping over, if you want the bulb bigger, you can actually take and snip the top portion off to allow a lot of that weight to disappear and allow the bulb to grow more. And you can take that as a put that on chives, you can freeze that, put it on pizza, eat it however you want to go about doing it. So we're going to pull some of these bulbs here, and you just want to grab onto the bulb and pull it up. Now that's a decent sized onions. Now these onions here are the best looking onions that we've ever grown in this garden, and I contribute a lot of that to double digging, where we dig the top portion of the soil, then loosen the subsoil, and then put the topsoil back on. And that's in one of our extras, and the link will be below in the show notes for that information. So let me go ahead and start pulling some of these onions, and we'll see what kind of harvest we have here for our first stage of the onions. So we just grab the top of the bulb and harvest them. Now I'm putting in this black tray that we found alongside the road that nurseries will occasionally get bulbs in. If you can find these, you want to hold on to them. If you don't have something like this, you can get a milk crate or a reusable bag or netting of some sort that you would purchase onions in at the store, just to make it easier to process when you get in the house. There's not, a lot of the dirt will fall through. Now, like I said, with the onions that are bent over, the tops are still green, but if you leave them be for another week or two, they're going to dry out. So you want to take advantage of the top portion right now. You can go inside, you can chop this up, you can freeze them as chives, you can process them. However, there's multiple recipes on how to go about doing it, but just don't waste them because these are good and the whole onion is edible that way. So let me get this big bulb here. This is one I've been watching for a while. Now that is a nice onion bulb. And again, these were ones that sporadically came up last year, or we planted last year and sporadically came up early this spring that I transplanted over here and double dug the soil. And that is a good, nice garden bulb there. That is a good onion there. So some of them was good, some of them were okay. So we're just gonna pull some of these up. And then also on the high end of the garden, those have got really dry and those have died as well. So we're gonna harvest some of them as well. So we're just gonna go through our patch here, and there we've got onions sporadically planted everywhere. So we're just gonna harvest a good variety of them today and see where we end up with. So we've harvested our onions, and this is only about 30% of what we have planted. We've got yellow and white and red onions of all different sizes, and these are the ones that were tilted over and ready to harvest. Now what we'll do is we'll take and process the top portion and turn it into chives and freeze them. The bottom portions you could do a lot of things with. You could dice them up, you could pickle them. What we'll do is we'll take our indoor greenhouse and sit in the attic with the cover off and use the racking as a shelf and set them where, since it's cooler, it'll be a curing process for a couple of weeks, and that'll put a harder shell on the onion, and then they'll be ready for storage in a cool, dry place. Since we've harvested our onions, we have a spot available in the garden. And I recommend anytime you do harvest something and it's not up against your frost date, to go ahead and plant something in that spot. And that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take bush beans and place in the spot of where these onions came from. Though it's not going to be a lot of bush beans, it'll be more than what we would have if we didn't plant any at all. So that's what we're going to do, but that'll be for another time. So again, plant your onions, harvest them, and there's so many things you can do with them, from eating the tops and eating the bottoms. There's nothing that goes to waste on an onion. We're going to spray our tomato plants with liquid seaweed. Now, why would we do that? Well, it's to prevent spider mites from eating the plants. Now, it doesn't kill the spider mites, but it makes the leaves hard enough that the spider mites cannot eat the leaves. Now, the spider mites will typically eat the leaves, make webs, and that webs will attract bugs, and they'll eat the bugs, but also will attract other unwanted bugs in your garden, and they'll eat your tomato plants and really hamper your tomato plant production. So we're going to take 2 tablespoons of liquid seaweed for every 1 gallon of water. So we've got some water here. We're just going to fill our sprayer with. Now you can get liquid seaweed at your local garden center, home improvement store. Most places will have it. All right. An all-natural, organic pesticide here. So let's head to the garden and we'll spray our tomato plants. Now when you're spraying your tomato plants, you want to spray the top of the leaves, the bottom leaves. You want to get the whole plant soaked with this liquid seaweed. And you don't have to worry about spraying too much on your tomato plant because the liquid seaweed is an all-natural product and the tomato plant will absorb what it wants and it's not going to hurt them at all. Now, if you want to know more about spider mites and the best way to grow your tomatoes and all the right measurements and how often you want to spray them, you can go to our website at thewesconsinvegetablegardener.com, and on the right-hand side we have a category button, and you'll want to look underneath there and you'll see how to grow the best tomatoes, and click on that and that'll give you all the information you'll need to know about applications and how much and when to go about spraying them. And you just want to cover them very nicely, no matter how big or how small the plant is, because you want to get ahead of the game to prevent spider mites from eating on your tomato plants. Now what we recommend is a pump sprayer, and we got this one from HD Hudson. This is the Bugweiser. It's a 3-gallon model. They do come in 1 and 2-gallon models. And you can refer back to the extra we did on this sprayer. We really like it. And if you want more information on how you can get your own HD Hudson sprayer with whatever model and size you want, you can go to their website at hdhudson.com. So we want to spray these all down really good, and that will help our tomato plants grow better, produce more, and make us happier gardeners. These are our self-watering containers, and this was an influence from our good friend Clint at gardenfrugal.com. Now, if you want to see how we made ours, you can refer back to show 31. Now we're going to make a cucumber tower self-watering container from a water cooler bottle. A few weeks ago, we made a self-watering container for our melons that now we've placed underneath our shelf trellis. Well, today we're going to turn a water cooler canister into a cucumber self-watering tower. Now, this is rubber coated fencing, and this is optional. You don't have to have this, but we want to use this because we're going to place this either on the porch or out in the small garden where we can't till the soil up due to gas lines. So what you're going to need is your base is a 5-gallon canister that goes on a water cooler. Now, typically in most aspects, when they bring these and empty them, you're supposed to turn them back in for deposit or you get a new one. Well, this one we found in the junk, so we didn't steal this from anybody. But if you want to acquire one, however means you do it is none of my business, and you can do it however you need to do it to get one. So what the premise of it is, we're going to cut the top portion off, invert it, and set it inside the bottom portion below the black line, which will be our water reservoir. Now there'll be an overflow hole there. So that's what we're going to do initially. We're going to cut the portion, these 2 in half. Now how I figured this was, the spout on this is about 3 3/4 inches. So I came up just a tad bit more, and then we'll put a cotton kitchen rag in there to use as a wick, like in a lantern. So let's go ahead and get this cut right now. You can use any type of saw. I don't think kitchen shears is going to cut through this. You just want to kind of mark it, pre-mark it, and then you want to cut it. Okay, so we got the base cut from the top portion, and we found out there was a little problem. If you set the top portion to the bottom portion, there's a lot of gap there, so I mismeasured somehow. So to correct this problem, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut about about 3/4 inch off of the spigot here until I get it the top and the bottom portion to nestle together nicely. So I don't want to cut too much off of this until I see where I need to be. So that's what I'm going to do to correct the problem of the basin being too short-sided. So let's go ahead and do that and try to correct this problem that we have. Alright. Needs a little bit more. So that's fine because I didn't cut too much off of it this time. So now I can just gently work my way to the point where it'll set in just a little bit more, and then we'll start drilling some holes in the top here. So let me take another, I was pretty close to where my mark was. Okay, let's see where we're at now. Okay, we're just about there. With the soil, that will fit in there very nicely. The way the soil and the water, that's going to work just fine. So with that little oops, we didn't have a big problem. Since it's going to be a self-watering container, we'll be able to see how much water is in it, and we'll be able to replenish it accordingly. So the only benefit to doing it right the first time would have been allow another inch to inch and a quarter of water reservoir there. Okay, so now we're going to take, and as you've seen when we made our self-watering totes, we want to drill holes in the top portion of the bottle, because when it sits outside and it rains, you don't want all the water to pull in the bottom of the the bottom here, you want some of it to be able to seep into the water reservoir so you don't have a pool of potting compost where your cucumber is growing. So any size drill bit will work. This is the one I have. So I'm just going to do probably just a handful of holes here. Now, I've got those, as you can see, got the 4 holes there. Now I'm going to set that in there, and what I'm going to do is, in order for the water to seep up through the center here, I'm going to have to take and I'm going to drill, I'm going to notch a couple notches in the spigot or in the spout here so water can run to the rag that we'll place in there later. So there's 2 ways of going about doing this. I'm going to do it the saw way. And a hand saw or electric saw would be fine. A hand saw you have a little more control over it. Okay. Now I'm going to take the drill bit. It's going to be 1 notch. See 1 notch there. I'm going to do the same thing on this other side. Okay, as you can see, there's 4 little holes there, and we're going to now, as with the self-watering totes, we just pack the soil in there and allow the soil to use as a wick, and it would wick the water up into the basin. So instead of using the kitchen towel for this, I believe it's going to work just as well if we just compact that soil into the hole here and allow it to wick itself up. But before we do that, we want to have an overflow on our water reservoir. So it doesn't matter where, but I do want one kind of at the top so I can get maximum quantity of water in. That'll be our overflow right there. Okay, so we're going to change things up, and this is kind of one of them projects is there's no right answer, you kind of learn it as you go, so that's what we're doing. So like the self-watering container that we use with the totes, we use vacuum hoses that we recycle the vacuum, so we're going to use the hose as a filler for the water reservoir instead of trying to figure out some way of lifting this up with the wick, the rag as the wick, and filling it and then putting it back down. We're going to do a different way here. So we're just going to take, I've marked the hole for where I want my vacuum hose to go. I've got a drill bit like this. This is a 7/8, and it's going to make a smaller hole than what the hose is, and that's the way I can fit the hose in the hole and it'd be an airtight seal, and I don't have to worry about excess soil falling in the crevices there. So we'll go ahead and do our best to drill a straight hole. Then we're going to take our vacuum hose and we're going to twist it, and that will narrow it down enough to where we can get it into our hole here. All right. And then we're going to put it back on our basin, and we'll cut it down to size here. And as you can see, when we get the soil in, it'll all balance out very nicely. So I'm going to cut this hose off. Give me a little excess here. And if you don't have a hose like this, if a old piece of PVC pipe would work, it's just going to be a little tough getting it through the hole with this hard plastic on the edge. So now it's going to be time to fill with soil. Now when we fill with soil, we want to put that pipe to the side, and we're just going to fill it with some potting soil here. I want to go a little ways up, and then I want to pack that center where that water is going to wick up really tight. Just finish topping it off. Alright. Now I'm going to fill this pretty close to the top. I'm going to go about an inch. I want this all to pack in really good because I don't want no air pockets, because I want that water to be able to wick up so our cucumbers will get plenty of water. Alright, now we're going to put water and let the water sit in overnight and allow it to wick up. And the first time it's going to take more water than normal because the soil, this older potting soil, it's going to take longer, and it's drier, so it's going to take longer to wick up and take more water. Now what you can do is, before you put the soil in, you could wrap the inside of your self-watering container with newspaper or old papers from seed catalogs to protect the roots from getting sunburn. Now what we're going to do is, after we let it set out overnight and let the water wick up into the soil and get it topped off and get everything nice and moist, we're going to take some green spray paint and just spray paint the outer side of our self-watering container here to protect the roots from getting sunburn, which will actually increase the productivity of the plant. It won't be so stressed. It's just like you getting sunburned on your arm. It's painful to the plant, and it does hurt the plant. So let's top the water level off with, and a funnel works with this, or a soda bottle cut in half works as well also. That was a ½ gallon, and we're just about half full on that. So I'm just going to let it set for a little bit, and when it's all said and done, tomorrow we'll plant our zucchini or our cucumber seeds in here. We've got some that we started in pots, so we'll just transplant them in, and then we'll set this, we'll paint it, we'll set it outside, and we'll put the cage around it and allow the cucumbers to grow up. Now also in the cage here, we've cut a couple areas to where when the cucumbers do grow, we'll be able to reach in easily and pick them without any issue. So it's a kind of a job, or a kind of a reusable item that you're not really certain how it's going to go. It's kind of a learn as you go process. Each one will be a little different based on the type of container you may be using, but this also, the same premise can be used for soda bottles in your window if you want to grow herbs throughout the winter months too. Just because you don't have a lot of space to grow your vegetables doesn't mean you can't grow them. We've got the small garden here, and last year in the front yard we had a container garden which was very successful. So this year we just decided we wanted a ground garden, with the permission of our landlord of course. So we called Digger's Hotline and then found quickly out that our 200 square foot garden was soon to be about a 90 square foot garden due to the amount of wires, cables and gas lines that were in our front yard. Well, that didn't deter us, as you see, with our smaller garden. Now up on the north end here we've got tomatoes, some caged, some not. We're going to get to the rest of them being caged shortly. Some that we've grown from seed, others we purchased from our local home and garden center. Either way is fine as long as you're growing your own food. We've got sporadically scattered through some pepper plants, jalapenos and bell. And we've also used a tomato cage as a trellis for our Pride of Wisconsin cantaloupe and tiger melons. And we're going to let that sprawl around and train it as we need to see how well that's going to grow up here in the small garden. Beside the potatoes and the tomatoes, we're going to have some bush beans planted. Our tomatoes are doing very well, so we're using the other side of the potatoes as peppers and eggplants that we've planted very recently. Our romaine lettuce is doing very well, besides the fact that neighborhood rabbits have come along and ate some of the outer leaves of the front plants, which is not a big deal because we've got plenty left over for the back. If that's all they eat, I'm okay with that. In the back there we've got some Swiss chard and peas that we're using what we've already had, which is the fence, to trellis in. Later on we'll be putting some cucumbers in and allowing the fence to being used as a trellis for those as well. Again, some more jalapeno peppers sporadically scattered in, and we've got a handful of leeks that are doing very well also. In this portion, we've got some onions that we've planted around the perimeter. We've harvested our bok choy, and we planted tomatoes in their place, along with kale and sporadic dill that has voluntarily came up from the containers that we had in the front yard last year. So don't be deterred if you don't have a giant yard to plant in. Even a small space such as this can produce a lot of produce for you and your family. Well, that's all the time we have. Hope you enjoyed the show as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. Planting these bush beans where we harvest them onions earlier. Now, if you don't have success growing onions, you can always visit your local farmer's market and support your local farmer. And using that water cooler container as a self-watering cucumber tower. Now that's something, if you had that available to you, you don't have to use a water canister. There's a variety of other ways to go about making one as well. For all of us here at the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener, I'm Joy Baird, reminding you, take a child gardening and start growing some memories. The show never ends on our Facebook page. Keyword Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener. Like the page and continue the discussion there. You can now follow us on Twitter, see what we're up to and what we're doing at the garden. The address, the W-I Veg Gardener, G-A-R-D-E-N-R. You can email us at the wiveggardener@gmail.com with your questions, comments, or suggestions about the show. This program was funded by the following.
At DollarSeed.com, all of our seeds are only $1 a pack. And we have online resources that teach you all about the rewarding hobby of growing your own plants, flowers, herbs, and vegetables. Imagine the joy you'll feel when your children actually help you harvest your first garden crop, or the pride of knowing you'll never need a florist again. Visit DollarSeed.com and grow a little magic of your own for just $1. DollarSeed.com. What could be healthier?
Willow Spring Soap Company is a locally owned Colorado business just a stone's throw away from the Rocky Mountains. Their handmade soap is made from simple, recognizable ingredients, which lead to a more natural, earth-friendly, long-lasting, and hard bar with a wonderful creamy lather. They make soap using the cold kettle process with a specially formulated recipe of 100% vegetable oils. They use traditional methods that produce a true soap instead of the commercial synthetic alternatives that can dry out skin. Go to www.willowspringsoap.com to get a fresh and natural clean, handmade in the Rockies.
The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener supports the following. Hunger Task Force believes that every person has the right to adequate food obtained with dignity. They're providing food for people in need. With their 151-acre working farm and fish hatchery in Franklin, Wisconsin, volunteers are needed daily. You could plant seeds in the greenhouse, ride the transplanter, or you can make an instant $10 donation from your mobile device by texting food to 52,000. For more information on how you can help end hunger, visit hungertaskforce.org.